All right. I'm going to add Cheryl and me there on the recording so you can see us. And there we go. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for your patience in getting in. And if you're watching this on the replay, please feel free to message us and comment anything you'd like some further information on, and feel free to participate in the conversation on the Facebook page or on the LinkedIn page. We will also be monitoring that afterwards for those who are on the replay. We do really apologize for the Zoom fiasco. Zoom seems to have decided that time is flexible today. And some of you Zoom told it was 1 hour, and some it was a different hour, and others it was yet another one. So far, we've seen Zoom send out 5 different times for this meeting off the same link. So how that happens, I have no clue, but we're glad you all persevered and got here now. So if you're with us live, great. And if you're not, we hope to catch on the replay, and it will be just as beneficial to you. All of the energy work that we do will be embedded right into it, and you will get the same benefit whether or not you're watching it live. And if you want to go back and watch it as a replay, you can get it again. So if you feel like you missed something or you want a little more of something, feel free to just go back and redo it, and the energy patterns are all embedded right in, and you won't have any trouble following that. So thank you for joining us. Cheryl, why don't you introduce yourself and we'll go from there.
Okay. Well, I'm Cheryl Hanna. I am a natural bioenergetic specialist. I live up in Prince George, BC, up in Canada, for those, if there's anybody here who's not from Canada. And I've been practicing energy medicine and doing for about 20 some years, and doing some coaching for the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years that I've been doing coaching as well. And natural bioenergetics has allowed me to combine the two of them together. So with the energy work, we work on removing negative patterns out of people's lives, or negative ways that they've been stuck thinking. And the coaching allows us to help them figure out what's a good thing to put in its place, so that there's not this vacuum that's left there. We're going to be talking about beating burnout tonight. And this is something that I have personal experience with myself. Back in 2005, I hit the wall. So for those who don't know me, I have 12 children. I gave birth to each one of them one at a time. And I was homeschooling them. And I was also married to somebody who is, well, yeah, he was abusive. And there was a number of things going on in my life. And 5 months after my last child was born, I actually had a heart attack. And then within a year, my marriage ended, and everything collapsed on me. And so I basically hit my own personal ground zero and had to rebuild from that. And natural bioenergetics and energy work has been a large part of putting me back on my feet and making me more functional than when I went into the crisis. So, you know, I hope that you ladies are able to maybe get a taste of what it is that we experience as we go through this process, and hopefully find some hope in this. If you're teetering on the edge of burnout, or you've been there and you're struggling to get back from it, hopefully what we have to offer you tonight will be of assistance to you.
Thank you, Cheryl. And I too went through about a 2-year period of what, looking back now, I know was complete and utter burnout. It was called at the time exhaustion and adrenal fatigue by the doctors. Although I didn't go to any medical doctors, but I did work with a naturopath and a few others, and realized now that had I known then what I know now, it wouldn't have taken me 2 years to recover, but it did. And it was 2 years of pretty much dysfunction. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Linda Easthouse. I'm also a natural bioenergetic specialist. I've been doing this for nearly 20 years now, and added coaching to my work probably 5 years ago. And so again, I also marry the two together in many cases. Sometimes we do coaching, sometimes we do energy work, sometimes we do both, whatever works. It's a toolbox that we use to help people, and that's what it's all about. But I had lived in South America for 18 years with my family, through some tough years. I don't know how many of you remember all of the issues with the Shining Path back in Peru in the 90s. Well, we lived there through all of that. And on top of that, ran a very extensive literacy and bilingual education program along with my husband, and 2 kids who were chronically sick with everything there was to be sick with. One was allergic to everything you could eat, and the other was allergic to everything you could breathe. So you can imagine dealing with that kind of chronic, serious health stuff all the time. And then on top of that, there were all kinds of issues in the organization we worked for, which created a huge amount of stress. And at one point, we decided it was time to leave Peru. The project that we were responsible for was finished, turned over to the national organization and group that had grown up to take it over and do it. And it was great. We were all happy. It was wonderful. Let it go and move back to Canada. Well, my kids hated Canada. They did not want to be in Canada. You can imagine the stress of culture shock, language shock, school shock, kids who at that point hated their parents. Good thing we've recovered from that, and we now have great relationships with them both, but there were a few rough years there. And add on to that, then I got sick. And so between all of the various things going on, I crashed and burned. And although I sort of motored through because I had to, I did significant amount of damage to my body physically and to many other aspects, the emotional trauma, et cetera, around that. It was nasty and it was difficult. And it wasn't until I met someone who did natural bioenergetics back then that I started onto the road to recovery and doing the energy work and working with him, and then starting to take the training and doing all the work for myself and working with my instructor. Within 2 years, I was back to being functional. I was actually able to hold the job down. I had quit my job. I basically, I was completely non-functional for almost 2 years. It didn't necessarily look like that from the outside because, well, kids went to school and the family got fed somehow or other. But in terms of functioning, it was bad and it was sad. And so I learned a lot in the process. I have spent a lot of time helping people through that process in the meantime, and I learned a lot about what makes it work. One, how to prevent it. And believe me, prevention is by far the best thing, rather than cleaning up the mess after you've already crashed and burned. And I do want to say, even for this particular workshop, here I am 20 years after all that happened. And I still pay attention to where I am on the burnout scale. Mm-hmm. How close am I pushing my margins? How robust am I feeling and going on? And as we started this in December, planned all this, worked everything all out, got it all ready to go. And I thought, oh, great, Grand January is going to be fabulous. I'll get onto Facebook all the time. I'll do my lives. I'll, help put all this stuff out there. And then I got COVID and spent a week sick in bed. Nothing serious, but enough that I got nothing done for a week. And then I barely recovered from that. And I got a bacterial throat infection, strep, and spent more than a week, barely able to talk, back in bed, doing nothing, not functioning. And here I'm going, what are we going to do? Thankfully, I have an amazing VA who took what we had prepared and has run with it all month for you guys. And so much of the stuff in the Facebook is thanks to her consistency in helping us out. But I knew that if I pushed myself, I'd be too close to the burnout bar. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't. I took time off. I took naps. I stayed in bed. I took care of myself. And so you didn't get everything you should have got when it comes to this workshop in preparation. Excuse me. And you're still going to have to put up with a little bit of a cough. But I know that once you've been through burnout, you must always monitor where your energy is in respect to that, because it's really easy to go back there, and we don't want to go back there. And taking care of yourself and respecting your own needs and being aware of where your push points are is so critical to maintaining sanity and functionality and being able to do what's right for you, regardless of what else falls apart. And if I hadn't told you that, most of you wouldn't know that anything had been wrong. You wouldn't know you missed anything. You would have been fine with what you're getting. But I do want you to know that it's not normally the way we run things. We're usually a little more visible and present, and that's okay. But I knew I needed to walk what I talk. And I'm going to teach you to take care of yourself so you don't end up in burnout. Then I have to do that. Letting myself get too close to burnout isn't going to help that. Yeah. And so I really wanted to stay in integrity with, I really can't do that right now. And yes, got some help. My VA just stepped up to the plate and did an amazing job. And if something got missed somewhere, please don't blame her. And what we're going to do is all the things that we would have done otherwise, we're just going to continue to do over the next few weeks in the Facebook group. And you'll get all the messages we intended you to get, and you'll get all the training and the help and the backup and the support that you will continue to need if you're dealing with burnout. And we're very happy to do that. We'll just extend the time. So instead of this being the end of the process, it's kind of the middle of the process. So we'll be flexible and go with the flow. Oh, excuse me. We're going to have to put up with that. So that's our story. That's where we're coming from. So most of what's in here is what we have learned through the process of living through this and helping others recover from it as well. Cheryl, do you want to say something about how to define it and figure out how to know whether you're actually in burnout or not?
Well, we have before us a medical definition on the screen here. And it's emotional and physical exhaustion that comes from a combination of exposure to, I can't read this thing because, hang on, I got to figure out how to do this. There we go. Exposure to environmental and internal stressors and inadequate coping and adaptive skills. So it's like you got too much stuff coming at you all at once, and you don't have what it takes to keep all those balls in the air. So in addition to the signs of exhaustion, the person with burnout exhibits an increasingly negative attitude towards his or her job and life, low self-esteem, and personal devaluation. And it's often accompanied by fatigue, insomnia, impaired work performance, and an increased susceptibility to physical illness and substance abuse. Now, I'm kind of thinking that one of the reasons some of you people are on here is that maybe some of you have been there or are close to that. And if that's the case for you, why don't you just drop a me in the chat box just to let us know if you're one of those people. So as dire as it sounds, there is hope. I mean, Linda and I have shared a little bit that that we've been there ourselves, and we've done things to recover from it. And you know, the thing is, once you've been there, it's really easy to go back. Unfortunately, when you hit burnout, unless you're monitoring yourself and taking care to offload as much stress as possible in your life, then the possibility of going back into it is greater. But we're going to help you with resilience here. So there is hope. There is a way to respond to burnout that allows you to notice when it's coming and prevent it so that you don't go there. So one of my key things that I notice is when I start to feel pressure in my chest. When I was leading up to the heart attack, I had the proverbial elephant sitting on my chest, and it had been sitting there for a long time, actually, when I look back at it, and it was just becoming a bigger part of my life. And then eventually I got tipped over the edge and ended up in hospital. Fortunately, I survived it and here I am today. But one of my key indicators that tells me it's time to back off is that I start to feel pressure here. The other key indicator that I have is I start forgetting people's names and things that I shouldn't forget just drop out of my, I lose my words. I had that actually happen to me last September. I got to the point where I was starting to lose words. And when that happens, that's my key to cut back and do some regenerative work and clear out some stuff that's causing stress in my system. So
yeah, it's so true. And you really do have to be aware of what's going on there and really pay attention to it. And I think the thing is that we need the concept that burnout is a continuum. It's not like you're okay and then you're in burnout. Burnout isn't a very carefully defined place. It's this scale where you just kind of slide into dysfunction, and where do you draw the line for you? And every one of us might have a little bit of a different line, and that's okay. But as all these factors add up, the weight becomes unbearable, and you go, instead of functioning and kind of managing, you go plunk and you're done. And that drop is usually pretty severe. And so we want you to pay attention to the factors, and it's really about a very holistic approach. It's not just what's going on at work. It's not just what's going on at home. It's not just what's going on in your head. It's all these things together, and you could probably handle the work if you weren't also dealing with something else. And so we need to be aware of the different kind of factors that are all coming together to cause the scale to go too far. So I want you to kind of scale each one of these items here, because these are key indicators of burnout. Put yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being low, 10 being very high, probably the worst it's ever been for you, for each one of these items, and see where you are. How many of those items are over 5? So take a couple of minutes and just figure out all your numbers there for those particular items. Write them down. When you got them there, in the chat box, put in how many of them are over 5. So there's 9 items there. How many out of 9 are over 5? Welcome. We're just doing a little exercise here for each of these items, scaling it on a scale of 1 to 10. And then in the chat box, mark how many of them have you marked as over 5. So this is the continuum we're talking about. If you get very many of these over 5, they start to add up together. They start to build in a, not in just a straight linear way, but in a much more duplicative way. And so if you're dealing with, I would say 5 of these at 5 or more, you need to be aware that you are on the road towards burnout. If most of these are 4, 5, 6 or higher, you're probably on the edge of burnout. And if more than 5 of these are 6, 7, 8, then you are in the beginning stages of burnout at the least, or you've been in burnout and you're coming out of it on the other end. So it's not a hard and fast scale, but it's a continuum, and you have to figure out where your balance point of this teeter-totter is. And you want to make sure that you keep enough of it to stay balanced and not end up with the teeter-totter becoming overpowered and dropping you down into something you don't want to be in. So there are 3 different kinds of burnout. Obviously, the most common one is what we call the overload burnout. It is certainly what I would say I was in. I had overload burnout in that I was trying to juggle a new country, a new job, sick kids, angry kids, financial issues, figuring out at the time that I was doing all this, I was working for a company that was sending me overseas to teach for as much as a month at a time. So I was in Africa and Asia for a month at a time. Well, my kids were at home having, serious issues. It was just a way too much. And it was like, everything's got to stop. And it did all stop, because you get to the point where you're just so overwhelmed, you can't do anything. Mentally, I didn't function anymore. Physically, I had all kinds of issues blow up. Emotionally, I became a disaster. When you're doing too much, you will burn out eventually. And as soon as you start to feel like it's too much, beware. Too much is a big sign. And this burnout is what most people typically think of as burnout. And it often leads to the kind of adrenal issues, the kinds of lymphatic issues, because the body simply doesn't have enough to keep going. You've burnt the candle at both ends for far too long. Cheryl, do you want to talk about number 2? You're on mute.
Sorry, my grandson came in. And so under challenge burnout, you don't feel challenged. You have what the French call ennui. You're just bored and there's no zest in your life, and you have no hope for the future. You don't wake up in the morning looking forward to the day, and your life is pretty blah. And some people hit that point. In some ways, it's almost like the second stage of the first one. The first one, you're overwhelmed, and then you kind of collapse into I can't do anything, I'm not interested in anything, and I don't want to go any further. So,
and some people don't seem to go through the overworked one. They just, they've been in a job that hasn't challenged them. They're in a relationship that's boring and dull. They have no interest in anything, and they really can't get themselves out of it. And they can actually go through all of the same burnout symptoms from lack of challenge as those who go through them from too much challenge.
mm-hmm.
And then the neglect burnout is kind of another aspect to it. And this is where, instead of going through all of the physical symptoms of burnout, you just turn into don't care, don't want to do anything, no purpose, no satisfaction. Life has no meaning. There's no point in doing anything, and just sort of give up.
This can also be caused by a feeling of paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have the ability to make decisions, and so things get neglected as a result of that.
Yeah. And the neglect burnout in some ways is harder to identify, because people tend to think, oh, I'm just lazy, or they think, well, I'm just not good enough, I can't do anything. And they tend to get more into the mental headspace of not good enough and no reason to do anything. And coming more from an emotional side than from a doing too much physically side. But the results will be the same. The process to deal with it will be very similar. So those of you who have already experienced burnout or are on the edge of burnout, you've probably already seen this. Many people, the first sign is that their career and relationship and life in general sense of progress stalls. They just get stuck. It's like suddenly they don't move anywhere. Nothing seems to work. Everything just gets hung up. And the more time and effort they put in, the less they get done. It's like they work at things, but somehow it isn't working anymore, and just not getting things done. And your energy starts to drop. You feel bad about yourself, often creates feelings of hopelessness. All of these are things that burnout will do to you without actually sort of raising any flags. You often get all of this going on before you even realize that you are where you are. And so knowing that when you start to see this happening, pay attention. That's a warning flag. So for so many people, this awareness piece is what's missing.
Mhm.
Oh.
So brain function, huge one. Usually by the time you've reached the point of burnout, you've got high circulating levels of cortisol that have been affecting your whole entire system. And one of the places it will affect you is in your brain. Studies have been done to show that high levels of cortisol that are maintained over a long period of time will actually impair your memory. And I know that I still have that problem. I have to create all these workarounds to help me remember what sort of things I need to get through in a day. And if I don't stay on top of that, things get missed. Of course, it increases your heart and stroke risk, and I'm the poster girl for that. But your relationships suffer, your career suffers, and it can turn into something much darker. And very often, some people end up down in that deep, dark hole of depression where it's really difficult to get out. And a lot of that depression is around anger. Anger is, when it's turned inwards, turns into depression. And usually when you're reaching this type of burnout, it's because there's been so many boundary busting things happening in your life where you're not in charge of where you're going and what you're doing. You feel like your life is being controlled by other people or by circumstances, or simply just because you had too many things on your plate and you were the one responsible, but you didn't have everything you needed to cope with it.
Is this where we were going to do one of those energy exercises?
Yeah.
Go for it.
All right. So one of the things we're going to do right now is, this sounds weird, but just reading through these lists for me makes me feel pressure. So what we're going to do is we're going to relieve some of that pressure right now. And the way we're going to do that is through an energy exercise called psychological sentences. And I'd actually worked up a couple of sentences before, but as I'm testing them now, they're not suitable. So we're going to choose some different ones here because of the group and the dynamic we have going here. So what I'd like you to do is, if you have water handy, just take a drink of water. And then you're going to do a quick thymus tap. And all you're going to do is just start at the neck and go down to the right, round in a circle right on your breastbone here. And that will give us a quick energy balance. And I'm just going to ask, test myself here. Okay, do we have energy permission for me to do this? Yes. Okay, how many sentences are we doing? Not one, not two. So we're still only doing 2 sentences. And are we using the, now I have a list of sentences here that I work with. And the reason that this is, I can use a list is because we all have similar issues and they come up over and over for people. And so I'm going to choose something. Is it on this page? This page.
So while she chooses those, I'm just going to explain a little bit. Just thinking about these things can be very stressful to someone who is feeling like maybe they're too far down the road into burnout, or feeling like you are in burnout, and in looking at the damage that it's done to you and what it's affected and how much you've suffered from this, will set off a fight or flight stress response. And what we want to do is shut that off for you so that it doesn't interfere with the rest of this, but it also gives you some exercises that you will be able to do whenever you want to do them in relationship to these particular kinds of stresses.
Okay. So for this particular one, we're going to hold something called the endpoints of 6. This is your heart and small intestine meridians. And so the meridians are the same meridians that are used in acupuncture. So the easiest way to do it, I'm going to get some, we're all going to put our thumbs over the nail bed of our baby finger. So that's going to get 2 ends of the heart and small intestine. Some of you I'd like to hold right here in front of your ear. That's small intestine 19. And some of you, I want you to hold under your arms, right in the armpits there. And that will get a heart 1. And what I want you to think about is, I am angry. And I want you to think about who makes you angry and what makes you angry and what sort of situations you've been in. Just think about all the different things that make you feel, I am angry. And as you're doing that, one of the things I want you to do is notice what you're feeling in your body, any areas of tension, maybe pain, discomfort. How are you breathing? Temperature changes. So Jean, is that, so your thumbs go over the nail bed of your baby finger, and then you just put your hands right in your armpits like this.
If we're under the armpit, it doesn't really matter which finger goes under there, whichever one reaches is fine.
Yeah, I've got 3 fingers under mine, so.
And if you're doing this for yourself and don't have other people to spread the points with, you would simply hold the baby finger and these ones for a little while you're thinking, and then switch and hold the other ones for a while. Think some more and go back and hold the other ones for a while. And you can just go back and forth between them if you need to. I am angry. Allow yourself to actually feel that anger and identify what it's about.
You might feel a slight pulsing. That's a sign that your energy system's starting to come into balance. You probably see Linda and I yawning our faces off. That's a sign that energy's moving.
A yawn or a sigh or a deep breath is just an energy sign that your energy is moving and things are shifting and coming into a better balance.
Excuse me.
For some of you, it's okay to be angry. It's okay to acknowledge that I am angry. And that's part of the recognizing of where you've ended up and gives you the motivation to do something about it. It's okay to be angry.
Some of you might be afraid of being angry because if you let loose and express it, you're afraid of what may happen. What this will do is kind of take the lid off and let some of it dump out so that you can think. Yeah, exactly. So if you're angry with yourself, just feel. I actually want you to go into it and feel it, because going through it will actually help you offload it.
Yep. Let yourself feel that anger. Holding these points will help your body treat it differently and release some of that.
Yeah.
And yes, it's perfectly okay to be angry at yourself about your inability to cope and how you ended up at that place where you have lost your ability. Fortunately, you're here and we're going to give you some skills and some coping mechanisms and help you regain that.
It's okay to be human and make mistakes. Yeah, there's a lot of people out there feeling that, Grazi. There's a lot of anger out in the world. A lot of anger over people making different choices than we would make. And what's behind a lot of anger is actually fear. We fear that we're going to lose something, whether it's our positions, our work, our relationships, or even the lives, our own life or the life of those that we love, because of the decisions that are being made. It's a pretty big one.
And the whole COVID situation has pushed so many people into burnout because now they're having to juggle working from home and homeschooling kids who should be in school and dealing with, isolation or not isolation or this or that, or their business is being threatened and they're having to work 4 times as hard to hold on to their livelihood. And the whole mess that's going on around there has pushed so many people towards burnout.
Yeah. Or not able to look after parents who are in homes and stuff because they've been blocked out.
And and the emotional trauma of all those things contribute significantly to burnout.
Yeah.
I am angry.
It's starting to feel better. Is this complete and robust for everyone? Getting close. We're getting close. Picked a good one. Good job, everybody. This is a pretty global statement. I am angry. So, you know, everybody's going to have a different flavor on where that anger is coming from.
Don't just think about it, let yourself feel it. Let those feelings come up. Let all the suppressed stuff show up. You're feeling tension somewhere, let that release whatever anger is stuck in there. Tension is often caused by anger stuck somewhere.
Excuse me. Okay, is this one now complete and robust for everyone? Is there any reason why not? Is there any benefit in holding this one longer? Okay, you can let go. Give your fingers a rest. We're going to do one more of these. And the next one we're going to do is people take advantage of me. So just take a moment to think about who's been taking advantage of you. Could it be family members? Could it be children? Could it be people at work? Could it be customers, clients, your spouse, your significant other? And we're going to hold the same points again. So again, we're going to put our thumbs over our baby fingers. So you're covering the entire nail bed, and you can either hold right here in front of your ears or under your arms again. And we're going to think people take advantage of us. For those of you who have just joined us, we're actually doing a couple of, we just did one correction. We're going to do another one on the statement, people take advantage of us. And if you'd like to take part, you can do so by, we're holding acupuncture points. So we're putting our thumbs over the baby fingers, over the nail bed, and you can either hold right in front of the ears here or under your arms. We're getting these heart and small intestine meridian endpoints. And the thought that we're thinking about is people take advantage of me. So just think about where that shows up for you in your life. One of the things to know about when we do a group of corrections like this is very often the items that are in it are related to one another. So I am angry is very often connected to people taking advantage of me. So think about how those two might be tied together as well as you're thinking about this.
Because this is a group correction, some of you, this will be more pertinent to than others. Some people will kind of not really feel a lot around one of them or the other of them. But for most of the group, this will be very key. And even for those who think, well, it's not really so much for me, there's aspects to it there. Just keep thinking about that. Think about when people do take advantage of you, how do you feel? What does it make you feel like? What does it bring up in your life? What responses do you do? How does it make you respond? All of those things are stressful, and we want to take the stress off of them so you can simply respond differently.
Even if you have good boundaries, just people attempting to take advantage of you is enough to set you off.
And for many people, burnout is because people do take advantage of them and they end up doing things they don't really want to do, or they get pushed into doing things that really aren't their responsibility, but well, somebody took advantage of them and they got stuck doing something. And it's how it feeds into burnout is very insidious, but it's a very important piece in it for many people.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of the fact that one of the things that I hear a lot from people is about how they feel taken advantage of by their workplace, especially if they work for a large company where they're just a body fulfilling a job. Some of these companies are quite happy to use up your energy in your life and then without any thought of how it's affecting you. I'm going to lock my door here because my grandson's trying to get in. He's only 17 months old, so. And his parents are out there, so he's not being neglected.
Thinking about and feeling people take advantage of me.
Take advantage. Is this one complete and robust for everyone? Is there any reason why not? Any reason why not? Okay, is there any benefit in holding this one longer? Okay, that one feels to me like it's done. I want you to just check in with yourself right now. And remember, I told you to kind of scan how you felt before we did the exercise to notice if you felt any tension or pain anywhere, and just see what has changed for you. And if you've noticed something's changed, put it in the chat box and share it with us.
So we're going to move on to a few more of the signs of burnout. We've kind of talked about some of these, so we'll go through some of this pretty quickly. And it's just here so that we make sure everything gets covered and you kind of get the full picture. But if you're finding yourself becoming cynical, more cynical than usual, particularly cynical about something you normally care about, then that's a pretty good sign that you're on the wrong Trina. No, maybe not for you, but if you find yourself becoming much more cynical than usual, that might be one of your triggers to say, I need to pay attention. I'm getting a little too close to tipping the teeter-totter. Low energy all the time, irritability on things that normally bother you, trouble getting started, like, you've got a bunch of things to do and you're procrastinating instead. Insomnia in particular is a big one. When you hit an exhaustion level, insomnia actually kicks in because of the exhaustion, and it seems counterproductive, but you actually can't sleep because you can't sleep, and you get more tired, which causes more insomnia, which causes, it's this terrible vicious cycle that is caused by burnout, by other things too, but burnout is a primary cause for it. You lose your ability to concentrate, you develop the physical symptoms, like Cheryl said, the chest pain, the dizziness, palpitations. You tend to catch things more easily, your immune system drops, you lose your resilience physically. Obviously, tension, worry, stress, loss of enjoyment, things that you would normally enjoy doing don't make you happy anymore. Those are all signs, clues, tells that you're too close to the boundary, that you're too close to the dropping off the edge, and it's time to take some significant change. So did you, Cheryl, where did you want to put the other exercise in, before or after this? I don't have I can't, with the screen, I can't see the paper where it is, I'm sorry. And you have to turn your mic on to talk to me.
Did I not? Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, so I can't see my notes either for whatever reason. It's not letting me view it, but it's testing that avoiding burnout. We'll do it after we discuss this. We'll do a final step.
So, as we said, prevention is by far the better approach. Avoiding burnout is way easier, even though it might seem more time consuming, than recovering from burnout is. So know your breaking point. For me, Cheryl told you some of hers. For me, when I'm watching a movie and a movie can make me cry, I know I'm too close to burnout, because I normally don't cry at movies. I can watch the saddest movies in the world and they don't bug me. It just doesn't fizz. And some days, and I can tell because other things are going on, but if I cry at a movie, it's like, okay, you need to back up, figure out what's going on here, lower your schedule, get rid of your stress, because I know that that is a clear sign that I am very close to dumping the teeter-totter over. Mm-hmm. So everybody has their own little break point. Everybody has their own little signal that says you're gone too far, back up. And understanding that is really, really important. And then being aware of it and paying attention and doing something about it. So you really want to learn your signs. You want to learn when it's too much. For some people, it's a particular ache or pain that shows up. Mm-hmm. For some people, it's kind of a tension in their stomach. For other people, it's they develop a breathing problem, or they develop they get headaches, or everybody has different signs. And you need to know what yours is and pay attention to it. And then it's really important to start figuring out at that point, what are the root causes? Why are you overdoing things? Why are you getting too close?
Another one that's not on the list here, but I find that this one comes up a lot with people, is guilt, feeling guilty. Just this overwhelming guilt and shame over all the stuff that's being dropped, but they don't have the capacity to deal with it. Mm-hmm. It's also a good sign that you need to work on something.
Feeling guilty about things that you shouldn't be feeling guilty for. That's a good sign you're very close to dropping the teeter-totter down. And committing to actively managing those symptoms, rather than just going, oh, yeah, I can see I'm not sleeping very good, or, oh yeah, I can see I'm eating too much junk food again, or, Yeah, I'm really, I'm getting really depressed, but not doing something about it. You can't let yourself get there.
Yeah.
When you start seeing these, you've got to start actively managing the symptoms and walking yourself back. Nobody else is going to do it for you. You've got to know what your signs are, figure out what the issues are in advance, so you know what your key things are that you're paying attention to. And when you start to see those triggers, be committed enough to your own wellness to actively manage those things and do something about it. And although it seems a little counterintuitive, actually finding something that you really enjoy and putting some effort into will really help, because that brings the joy balance into it.
Okay, so what we're going to do here is I want you, now if you've been feeling stressed out, you probably have a list of things. I want you to pick one of the things on your list that's stressing you out and give it a number. I think we did an exercise at the beginning. Maybe it'll be something on your list there where you had a 1 to 10. Pick one that has a high number on there. And what you're going to do is you're going to do this thymus tap that I showed you at the beginning. You're going to start at your U-shaped notch, going to go down to the right and around in a circle right on your sternum here. And I want you to keep tapping this point here while you're thinking about that thing that's stressful to you. Think about all the different aspects of it that bother you. Okay, and you can stop now. Now just take a nice deep breath. Notice if your breath is improved. Can you breathe deeper into your body? Have you noticed a drop in tension? Do you feel a little bit more relaxed? Has your number gone down? Might not go down to 0, but maybe it's dropped some. So thymus tap is something that you can do when you're starting to feel yourself getting freaked out and stressed over something. Doing a thymus tap will help to bring you back into a state of balance as you're thinking through those stressful items.
I hope you all have the workbook already downloaded and available to you. In there is a chart of issues to work through in terms of figuring out what are your root causes. And I want you to actually do that and fill that chart out and track it for a few days until you have a clearer picture of what are the key indicators for you. Because I know when I was going through this, it took me a long time to figure out what some of my stresses were. And I didn't realize that certain things that were happening were actually really quite stressful. I seemed like I was okay with them. I thought, oh yeah, it's no big deal. I've dealt with that. No big, I can handle that. But it was actually creating a pretty strong stress response in my body. And so I want you to work through that workbook exercise and really figure out what your key things are. It's kind of like if you keep your key indicators there, it prevents a lot of other things from going on. And that's what you want to do, is keep those key indicators front of mind so that you can see when you're starting to slide. So part of avoiding burnout, of course, are doing some proactive things, not just identifying what are the things that are showing you you're there, but actually then actively managing it. And setting better boundaries is one of the key things. Cheryl, do you want to talk about boundaries? Because I know that's an area of expertise for you.
Well, boundaries are where you end and I begin. It's one of the ways I put it. And very often, I can tell you right now that most of the relationship issues that people have are because they don't observe good boundaries with one another. So in other words, they overstep. Either if somebody in the relationship is underperforming because they're not meeting their commitments, or they're acting in an irresponsible way, a person who is overactive and over responsible will pick up the slack for other people. And in doing so, they think they're doing a good thing, but what they're actually doing is enabling other people to behave badly. Now, sometimes that happens because, maybe somebody's ill and they can't do that sort of thing. And you have to pick up the slack for them. And then that's actually a good thing to do. But you also have to be conscious of how much energy you have to be able to give to that, and whether or not you need to get help with carrying that particular burden. And this is why social relationship with one, as people coming together, we need to look after one another. Thanks for joining us, Grazi. We'll be recording this, so you'll be able to get the recording later. So having good boundaries and being able to say no. When someone comes to you and they make a request that you don't have the ability to keep, you don't want to keep, it would overstretch you, saying no is actually an appropriate thing to do. And it keeps you in integrity, not only with yourself, but with other people. So let your yes be yes and your no be no. And know when it's appropriate to say yes and no.
We often get guilted into saying yes to something we shouldn't be doing, and being able to simply say no and not have to defend ourselves, not have to give an excuse. No is a complete sentence. It doesn't require you to explain yourself to someone else's satisfaction. You have the right to say no for yourself. And that's what needs to happen in many cases, to set clear boundaries. And I think the other thing for me with boundaries, boundaries need to be expressed. People need to know what your boundary is. So often we assume that the other person can read our mind and know we'd rather they didn't do that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work very well. They're not very good at reading our mind. Unless we say, please, here's my boundary, don't cross that. They won't sometimes even know that they're crossing a boundary with you. And yet you then suffer the consequences of that boundary being crossed. And so being willing to express our boundaries and say, here's the line, don't cross it, very nicely, very simply, but we need to actually put that out there rather than assuming people understand, or assuming that people should know better, or assuming that whatever. Boundaries need to be clear, they need to be defined, and they need to be defended.
Yeah, and communication about them is really important. Linda was using the idea of assumptions, and very often what happens with people is that they have expectations of one another, and expectations are very often not stated. And as she said, we tend to try to mind read or expect others to mind read us. And what we need instead is to make clear communication for agreements. Yes, I will agree to do this. No, we can't do that. How can we make this happen? And negotiate it. But communication is really key to managing commitments and setting the boundaries so that it's clearly understood on either side. And there's nothing going unsaid that should be said.
That will remove a huge amount of stress and enable you to walk back some of the stress for burnout. Obviously, exercising and eating right is a big thing. I do not mean over-exercising and working out in the gym for an hour a day. I mean consistently getting 20 to 30 minutes of a good walk a day. Consistently doing some stretching or some yoga. Consistently getting your steps in. It doesn't have to be big, it just has to be consistent.
Mhm.
That's how the body gets the muscles to work properly. Doing a huge workout 1 week and then doing nothing for 2 weeks isn't nearly as useful to your body in terms of pushing toxins out, keeping the lymphatic system working, keeping your hormones level, keeping your adrenal system functioning properly, as walking 20 minutes a day or doing 20 minutes of stretching every day. It's not a huge amount, it's a consistent amount that really matters when we're talking about burnout. And I know, been there, done that. Exercising when you're burnt out is the last thing in the world you want to do. Still has to be done.
Yeah.
So
And
if you have, go ahead.
Our bodies were made to move. And when we don't move them, especially if we're in a sedentary job, and like, you know, Linda and I are in a sedentary job, we do a lot of we spend a lot of time in front of the computer and talking to people sitting down. So I've actually made a commitment myself to do some form of exercise, and I've been consistent with it for the last couple of weeks, and I've really noticed a change in my mental attitude towards myself.
Mm-hmm. And then of course, eating right. Well, what does right mean? Oh, the ideas about what's out there for right is mind-boggling. So I'm going to give you some very basic, simple guidance on this. When it comes to eating for burnout, what matters is clean, so the least chemicals possible. It matters that it is fresh and has enzymes and vitamins in it. It matters that it has protein with it. And I don't care whether that's vegetable protein or meat protein or collagen powder or whatever, as long as it's clean. The concept is that the body, whatever you put into your body, the body has to digest, break down, and either put into a cell and use or remove in some way. And the more chemicals and colors and crap and sugar and preservatives and whatever that are in your food, the harder your body has to work to do that. You are trying to conserve your energy. You are trying to rebuild your energy. You want to use the least energy possible to digest your food in order to have it to heal the rest of you and deal with the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
So if you eliminate all that stuff, your body will have a lot more energy to do other things.
Yeah.
So clean food, as little sugar as possible, real live food, so not prepackaged stuff, not pre-made stuff. Food is not ingredients, food is food. Should be in its package closest to its original packaging as possible. So that means the original packaging of an apple means it has a peel on the outside and nothing else. And that's what apple should be, etc. So with those, you want to add a few things. You want particular kinds of nutrients for burnout to help your adrenals. So you want things like pumpkin seeds. You want things like fresh, but lots of vegetables that have iron in them. So the cruciferous vegetables. You want enough vegetable. Go ahead.
Adaptogenic herbs like
Yes.
licorice root, ashwagandha, shatavari, dong quai. Those are all things that support your adrenal function, and they also support your hormone production.
Yeah.
And you also want to look at herbs that are good for cleaning out your organs, like your liver and your kidneys and stuff. And just because the more we detox out of our system, the more our energy flows more cleanly.
Yeah. And the less the body has to work to be able to get energy out of the food and to get the energy into the right places in your cells. So what you want is to simplify your food down to basic ingredients with not a lot of chemicals and crap and other things with them. And that will enable your body to actually get more of the nutrition out of the food with less energy. Getting enough sleep. And I know for people who are in burnout, it seems like you spend the whole day in bed, but you're not sleeping. And sometimes if you get up and get your exercise and eat your food and move and do some of the other things that you need to do, you will sleep better. And so you need to balance that feeling of exhaustion and the need to actually meet your body's needs so that it can sleep. And by enough sleep, that's different for different people. Usually somewhere between 7 to 9 hours is right. And you can feel just as bad getting too much sleep as you do with not enough sleep. And for many people, they have an exact amount of sleep that their body likes the best. And if you overdo it, oversleep it, you actually feel sluggish and tired and hard to get going, just as you would if you didn't get enough. So watch where that is for you and find that sweet spot for you.
Staying social. I know that's been hard for a lot of us with a lot of the lockdowns and the restrictions that they've placed on us. And if anything, it's showed us how important having a social life is and how much we do need each other. So make the most of it you can. If you have to visit people by Zoom, do it. At least you can see each other's face and you can chat. Stay in touch with people by phone. Write letters. That's a lost art. And I remember how excited I used to get when I had a pen pal friend and I would get a letter from her or a card. But do what you can to stay connected to people, because we actually do need each other. And we, the isolation has not been good for many of us.
Yeah.
It just means we need to be creative.
Yeah. And ask for help, particularly at work or at home. I don't know how many women I've worked with close to burnout or going through burnout, who, when I say, and how do you manage at home? You've got teenage kids in the house. Why are you doing all of the cooking, all of the cleaning, all of the washing, all of the laundry, all of the everything? And nobody seems to notice that you're exhausted and they're busy playing games. Well, it's time to put your foot down and ask for some help. Whether that's at work or whether that's at home, you need to figure out when you need some help and ask for it. It's okay to ask for help.
And then making a downtime routine. For a lot of us, we need to put down the tablets and the other electronic devices early enough in the evening so that the blue light and the electromagnetic frequencies that are coming off these devices are not interfering with our ability to sleep.
Exactly. And in the downtime routine too, I think often, like I know for me, while I was recovering, I had a downtime routine at lunchtime, and I had one sort of after work, and then I had my bedtime one, because I needed to actually take a break, disengage, shut down, go sit in a corner and do some breathing exercises and relax to regain my energy to get through the rest of the day. And so those little kinds of routines of where you make a plan to step back and stop going full speed for 10 or 15 or 20 minutes a couple of times a day can be really key to changing the way your body functions through the day when you're in burnout. And so find some routines that work for you. For some people, it's going for a walk. For some people, it's sitting in a corner doing breathing exercises. For other people, it's just closing their eyes and having a rest. It'll be different for different people, but find what are those routines that will help you shut down for a few minutes and let your energy recharge a bit before you charge on through the rest of the day. And particularly on the weekends. I mean, if you've worked all week and Saturday comes, maybe you need a downtime routine Saturday morning and not do anything else. And it's okay to do nothing. It's okay to sit and read a book. It's okay to watch a movie. It's okay to lay in bed and listen to music. Figure out what works for you, but you need those recharge periods throughout the day and throughout the week.
So changing your environment can be as easy as getting up and going outside and taking a quick walk for about 5-10 minutes, just to get out in the fresh air and sunshine or clouds or whatever you happen, snow, blizzards, whatever. A change is as good as a holiday, they say. So changing the environment that way, or even maybe a little bit of redecorating, painting a wall, different color in your home, having a staycation. One of the things that my husband and I did recently, we celebrate my birthday and anniversary and everything in January. So we had a staycation here, but we went to an Airbnb that was local to us, and it was absolutely wonderful to be in just a different space and to be able to relax there. It was great. So doing something that just makes things a little bit different for you and gives you a little bit more interest in being in that place, especially if you've been stuck at home, it's a good time to declutter. That will change your environment. Go through all the stuff that you haven't been using, get rid of it. So much of that stuff, when you have too many things in your home, it's like having too many programs open in your brain or on your computer. And I have found that when I declutter my environment, it feels better and it's easier to function.
And sometimes changing your environment means it's time to think about changing your job. For some people, they're not going to recover from burnout as long as they stay where they are. And particularly if your burnout is related to the no satisfaction, to the no future, it's time to move on. And moving on might be the best thing you could do for yourself. I know I had to do that. I had to change jobs. I had to change careers. I did a complete 180 on what I did. And that was key to my recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And so change your environment can be everything from the little things all the way up to maybe you need to re-examine what you're doing with your life. And that whole work environment may have to change significantly before you burn yourself out and crash and die in the process.
I changed my spouse.
Yeah, sometimes changing spouses is a good thing.
Yeah, that's too.
Other times it's not, but sometimes it is the emotional pressure and the pressure cooker space that you're in that is creating the burnout. And then that certainly may be one of the things. Oh, I love the comment there. Get up, dress, eat breakfast, leave for work, walk around the block, come back in and go to the home office. Very good, very important. And I am certainly one who says if you work at home, particularly if you're not always on Zoom, but just work at home, get up, put office attire on and look like a professional before you sit down to do your job. How you treat yourself is part of how you feel about yourself and how you're going to put the energy into your job.
Yeah.
So yeah, it really matters. That kind of environmental things really matter. So is this where you're doing the next exercise?
I don't know, is it?
I think it is.
Okay.
Neither one of us seem to have the notes showing up on the screen. I don't know what happened there, but oh well.
All right. So one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to do something called belief system eliminating. So a lot of us have these beliefs, and a lot of them form our self-talk, and many of them actually function at a subterranean level where we're not even conscious that this is what we're believing, but it governs how we go through our life. And a lot of these can be quite limiting in how we see the world. And when you have a limited viewpoint, you don't see possibilities that exist out there. So the way this works is I'm going to test up which statements we're going to use. We're going to do, let me see, how many we're going to do? Not one, not two. We're only going to do two. And once you have the statement, you're going to leave your microphone off because we're going to say these statements out loud. And you're going to do this little exercise. What you're going to do is you're going to take these fingers and you're going to go above and below your hairline right here in the front. You're going to kind of lightly pinch up and down here. And then on the back of your head while you're doing that, right here, you're going to go back and forth. So it looks like this. So let's suppose my statement was, I am weak. I'd be going, I am weak, I am weak, I am weak. Now, what this exercise does is we're actually connecting the frontal part of the brain here, which is where all your higher reasoning, your ability to make decisions, your risk analysis gets done. This is where you do all your higher level thinking. And back here, we have the emotional center of the brain that we're stimulating. And very often what happens with a limiting belief is that there's a strong emotion attached to it that keeps it in place. And what we're actually doing is breaking the connection between that belief that's thought up here with the emotion back here so that you have space to create something that's more functional. Okay. So let's find out what we're going to work on here. First one on this page.
And one of the reasons we're doing this correction first is because while those things are dysfunctional, connected inappropriately, where your brain isn't free to analyze them appropriately, we have a really hard time recognizing and acknowledging what our reality is and acknowledging our role in it. And this will free us to think in a different way as we look at these next few steps here.
Okay, so I'm typing this up in the chat, but I'm going to say it out loud. And so what you're going to do is you're going to go like this. Other people are more important than I am. So up and down the front, back and forth in the back. I'm going to put myself on mute.
And say it out loud. It doesn't work if you just say it in your head. Other people are more important than I am.
And we can't say it for you.
Everybody has to do their own. It only takes about 15 to 30 seconds. It's very quick, very fast. So as soon as you feel it kind of shift, or you feel the blood push through your brain, or you feel a sigh, you're done.
Okay, the next one that we're going to do is people can't be trusted.
People can't be trusted. Just keep repeating that out loud until you feel it shift off.
Okay, do you see how those statements can get in your way? If you think that people can't be trusted, guess what you're going to attract to you? People you can't trust, because whatever you focus on expands. And when you have this underlying belief, you miss the people who are actually trustworthy. And that will inhibit your ability to make relationship with people. And a lot of these things, these beliefs, come out of past experience that, you know, an incident happened, we had this belief at a weak moment, we thought the thought, and it became stuck in there. And now it's running your life, and you're not even aware of it, but it's creating problems for you in how you relate to people.
Well, and a belief like that, people can't be trusted, then subconsciously you're going to say, oh, well, I need to do it myself because I can't trust anybody else to do it. And so you take on more than you should, and you feel responsible for more things than you should, and you do more than you should because, well, you can't trust anybody to help you with it. You can't trust anybody to do it. You can't trust people that are, you know, that people will pick up their part of the load. And so it pushes. And that this is where we need to acknowledge the reality where our own beliefs really play into why we end up in burnout in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to acknowledge the reality of where you're at, that you've got what you've gotten yourself into, and what was your role in creating that, and which are the beliefs that led you there. And as you identify some of these beliefs, go ahead and do this about that belief. You can choose whatever tape runs through your head. You can choose whatever belief you identify and release it so that your brain can get unstuck and allow that to shift for yourself. Just don't do too many on any one day. Don't go ahead and do a whole bunch of those, or you can really fry your brain. Make sure that, you know, sort of 1 or 2 a day is okay. Don't do more than that. It's a process. You don't have to figure it all out at once. But as you begin to acknowledge, oh, and I mean, if I look at my own experience, there was a lot of I had grown up needing to be a people pleaser with a difficult father. And so pleasing people was a really big part of the way I worked. And I was really good at what I did, which meant I could make people really happy by doing it really well. So that got me into a perfectionist loop and an overachiever loop and spending way too much time perfecting and doing things that, you know what, people didn't even care about.
Mm-hmm.
But I was trying to please them. And I had to recognize that people pleasing was a big problem to me, and I had to figure out how to deal with that. And I spent a lot of time working with one of my natural bioenergetics specialists, working on myself to get rid of a lot of those kinds of things. And until we can recognize what our own role is in it and what our own beliefs are in it that cause this, it's very difficult to actually step back from it. And then the ability to disengage, the ability to simply observe what's going on without feeling personal responsibility for it. When we feel like we're responsible for everything, that's really a very selfish move. We really don't have that much power and control in the world. And believe me, I used to feel responsible for everything. I mean, my mothers and even my teachers would put, Linda's overly responsible. We never have to, you know, she'll always have it done before it's, well, that over responsibility wasn't doing me any favors, believe me. And to learn to step back and go, okay, I've done my part. Now, if you don't do yours, well, that's your problem, not mine. And to be able to step back and go, oh, okay, well, if that's the way you want to be, that's fine, you do that. And not engage is such a huge skill to learn. Such a huge power in your life when you can learn to disengage. And those are all things that in our coaching programs and our therapy programs, we spend a lot of time on.
So bouncing back from burnout, well, believe it or not, it is possible. I mean, we've been talking about the fact that we've bounced back. So part of it is acknowledging the reality. You know, you can't actually make changes until you can say what really is. When you're able to say, yeah, this is actually where I'm at, then you can make forward strides. And then the next thing is acknowledging your role. And that means becoming action in the cause. When you take responsibility for your own decisions, even if those decisions were made at a time when you didn't know better, you know, they say that when you know better, you do better. And sometimes we make decisions based on not a good frame of reference. We don't have the right knowledge. We don't have the maturity. We don't understand how relationships work. We don't understand what we're getting into with some things. And as a result of that, we suffer consequences. And one of the best ways to get past that, the self-induced guilt or avoidance that we can go in the other direction with, is to acknowledge what we actually did. Because from there, you can actually make a change.
So with all of those things, learn some relaxation techniques. We teach lots of them in the coaching program. There's lots of them on our website that you can just go watch the videos for free. Do something to learn how to relax. Your central nervous system gets into this hyper loop that prevents you from relaxing, and you have to break that circle somehow. You have to break that vicious circle by doing some conscious relaxation techniques. And self-care is absolutely mandatory, whether that is go get a massage, some nails, go out for coffee with your girlfriends, whatever you need to do, but take care of yourself, because those are absolutely critical parts of bouncing back from burnout. So from our perspective, once you have the awareness, once you have some skills, then it's really a choice. When you're ready to move on, you set clear expectations, you take control, you learn to take it slowly, you learn to give yourself permission to do nothing, you learn to check in on yourself, and you slowly, consistently, daily build your energy back by moving all of the excess things out and bringing in some of the correct things like self-care and relaxation and boundaries and all those good things, and you will bounce back from burnout. All right, we are done. A few minutes over, but hopefully not too far over. We would love to chat with some of you if you want more help with burnout. Both Cheryl and I see private clients. We both do private coaching. We also have a women's group coaching that we would be happy to help you explore if that's of interest to you. Please contact us on our Facebook group and in LinkedIn. And over the next couple of weeks, we will continue to feed information into the Beating Burnout Facebook page, where we'll continue to add all the things that might have happened earlier had I not been sick, but oh well. You'll get them anyway, so we'll just keep drip feeding them in there and you'll continue to get what you need.
Yeah.
Please don't hesitate to ask us, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, really great to have you all in here tonight. Hope you have a great evening, and let us know if you're in our group. Let us know what changes you've noticed or what sort of benefits came out of this for you.
What you noticed changing after doing those exercises with us.
Yeah, we love affirmation and we need it.
And we trust that these will help you get that teeter-totter back up to where it belongs and maintain the balance. It's all about preventing the drop. Thank you for joining us, and the replay will be out about 24 hours from now. You'll get it in your email, and we'll put the link to the replay in the Facebook group as well. So look forward to chatting some more with you. Thanks, everybody.
Night.